I stared at the text message on my phone, reading it 3 times to make sure I understood correctly. Brad, my son-in-law, had just informed me I was not welcome at Thanksgiving this year. No phone call. No explanation. Just a cold, dismissive text that arrived on a Monday evening, 3 days before the holiday. I had been hosting or attending Thanksgiving with my daughter Emma for 32 years, ever since she was born. This house where they would celebrate without me was the house I helped them buy. I held the private mortgage. As shock turned to anger, I picked up my phone and dialed my attorney. My name is Christy, and I never imagined I would be in this position. Sitting alone in my small condo that Monday night, I tried to understand how our family had come to this point. Emma was my only child, my whole world, especially after my husband Tom died of a heart attack when Emma was just 12 years old. Those years after Tom's death were the hardest of my life. I worked 2 jobs to give Emma the life she deserved. During the day, I taught 3rd grade at Lincoln Elementary School, and 3 nights a week, I kept the books for a local Italian restaurant downtown. I was exhausted all the time, but seeing Emma thrive made every sacrifice worth it. She was a good kid, responsible and kind, with dreams of becoming a nurse. Emma went to college on a partial scholarship, worked part-time in the campus bookstore, and graduated with her nursing degree. I was so proud of her. During her final year, she met Brad at a coffee shop near the university. He was working for a financial consulting firm in the city, came from a wealthy family in Connecticut, and seemed charming. I remember the first time Emma brought him home for dinner. He was polite, attentive, and told me how much he admired Emma's dedication to nursing. They dated for 6 months before Brad proposed. I had some reservations about how quickly things were moving, but Emma was glowing with happiness, and I did not want to be the mother who interfered. They married in a small ceremony at the courthouse. Brad's parents, Richard and Patricia, barely spoke to me during the brief reception afterward. I got the sense they thought their son was marrying beneath him, that a nurse was not good enough for their boy who worked in finance. For the first couple of years of their marriage, Emma and Brad seemed happy. They rented a small apartment across town, talked about starting a family, and saved what they could. But between Emma's student loans, Brad's credit card debt, and the high cost of rent, they were not making much progress toward their dream of owning a home. 3 years ago, everything changed. Emma and Brad found a beautiful 4-bedroom colonial house in a good school district on the north side of town. The price was $280,000, reasonable for the area, with a big backyard, perfect for the children they were planning. They were so excited, but when they applied for a mortgage, they were denied. Their debt-to-income ratio was too high, and they could not qualify for the amount they needed. Emma called me, crying. She said they had lost the house, that another buyer was making an offer, and they would have to keep renting for years. My heart broke for her. I had just sold the family home where I raised Emma, the house Tom and I bought when we were newlyweds. After downsizing to a 2-bedroom condo, I had $280,000 from the sale sitting in my savings account. I made Emma and Brad an offer. I would loan them $250,000 at 3% interest, far below the market rate, and hold the private mortgage myself. They would make monthly payments to me of $1,200, and I would have my attorney draw up all the proper legal documents to make it official and binding. It was an incredible deal for them, and it meant Emma could have her dream home. My attorney, Michael Patterson, had handled Tom's estate years ago, and I trusted him completely. He drew up the mortgage agreement, made sure everything was legal, and recorded properly with the county. We titled the house solely in Emma's name. I insisted on that. I wanted to make sure that if anything ever happened to the marriage, Emma would have security. Michael included a clause stating that as the mortgage holder, I had to give written consent for any sale or transfer of the property. At the time, it seemed like just a protective measure, something I never thought I would need. For the first year, Brad and Emma were so grateful. They invited me over for Sunday dinners, sent me pictures of every little home improvement project, and never missed a payment. Emma would call me twice a week, just to chat about her patients at the hospital or the garden she was planting in the backyard. I felt like I had done the right thing, helping my daughter build a life. Then Brad got promoted at his firm. Suddenly, he started making comments whenever I visited. Things like, "We really should refinance with a real bank." Or, "It feels weird owing money to family." Emma would defend the arrangement, reminding him that no bank would have given them such favorable terms, that we would never have qualified for a mortgage on our own. But I could see the tension building. 6 months ago, Brad started forgetting to make payments on time. The first time it happened, the payment arrived 3 weeks late. No apology, no explanation. I did not say anything because I did not want to cause problems. The second time it happened 2 months later, I thought about calling Emma but decided against it. I told myself, maybe they were just busy. Maybe it was an oversight. The last 3 months had been different. Emma seemed distant when I called. Our conversations grew shorter, less frequent. When I suggested coming over for dinner, she always had an excuse. Brad was working late. They had plans. The house was a mess. I could hear the stress in her voice, but whenever I asked if everything was okay, she insisted it was fine. Then came that text message from Brad on Monday night. Short and cold. "Christy, we've decided to keep Thanksgiving small this year. Just the two of us. Hope you understand." I did not understand. I sat there staring at my phone, feeling like I had been slapped. 32 years of Thanksgiving with my daughter, and now I was being erased from the holiday like I meant nothing. My hands shook as I called Emma directly. She answered on the 4th ring, and I could immediately tell she had been crying. Her voice was thick, congested, tired in a way that had nothing to do with physical exhaustion. "Mom," she said quietly. "Emma, sweetheart, what's going on? Brad just texted me about Thanksgiving." There was a long pause. I heard her take a shaky breath. "Mom, I wanted you to come. I fought with Brad for 2 days about this." My heart clenched. "What do you mean you fought?" Emma's voice broke. "He gave me an ultimatum. He said if you come to Thanksgiving, he's leaving. Has done with this, he says. He told me we'll never be a real family until we're free from you." I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. "Free from me? Emma, what are you talking about? I've never interfered with your marriage. I've never tried to control anything." "I know, Mom. I know." She was crying harder now. "He says it's about the mortgage. He says you hold it over our heads. That we can't make any decisions without thinking about you. Has been saying this for months, and I don't know how to fix it. Emma, I have never once mentioned that mortgage to you, except when you make a payment. I have never used it as leverage for anything." "I know," she whispered. "But he won't listen to me. And Mom, I'm so tired of fighting. I'm so tired of being in the middle." My anger at Brad was mixing with fear for my daughter. Something about this felt wrong. Felt like more than just a disagreement about a mortgage or a holiday. "Please, Mom," Emma said, her voice pleading. "Just let this Thanksgiving go. I'll fix this. I'll talk to him. Just give me time." Every instinct I had told me not to back down, but I could hear how desperate Emma sounded. I told her I loved her, and hung up the phone. I sat in my quiet condo for a long time, crying. Then I thought about the mortgage documents locked in my file cabinet, the legal agreement Michael Patterson had drawn up. I thought about Brad's increasingly cold behavior, the late payments, the way he seemed to be systematically pushing me out of Emma's life. I picked up my phone and called Michael. It was late. Almost 9 o'clock. But he answered. "Christy, what's wrong?" I told him everything. The text from Brad. The conversation with Emma. The feeling that something bigger was happening. When I finished, I asked the question that was burning in my mind. "Michael, what are my legal options if they default on the mortgage?" There was a pause. Then Michael said carefully, "Christy, as the mortgage holder, you have the same rights as any bank. If they violate the terms, if payments are consistently late, you can issue a notice of default. You can demand full payment. You could even initiate foreclosure proceedings if it came to that. I don't want to hurt Emma, I said quickly. I know you don't. But Christy, from what you're telling me, something isn't right in that marriage. Brad isolating Emma from you, giving her ultimatums. That's concerning behavior. Maybe it's time to assert some boundaries. I thought about it all night. By morning, I knew what I had to do. Tuesday morning, I met Michael Patterson at his office downtown. The building was old, but well maintained, with dark wood paneling and brass fixtures that spoke of tradition and reliability. Michael was in his early 60s, with gray hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He had been Tom's attorney and then mine for over 20 years. Christy, he said, as I sat down across from his desk, I want to make sure you understand what you're doing here. I understand, I said. I'm setting a boundary. Brad needs to know he can't treat me this way, and he can't control Emma like this. Michael nodded slowly. All right, let's review the mortgage agreement. He pulled out the file, and we went through it together. The last payment had been due on November 1st and had not arrived until November 10th, 9 days late. Before that, 2 other payments had been more than a week late. According to the terms, Michael explained, any payment more than 7 days late triggers a penalty fee. You've never enforced that, but it's in the contract. More importantly, a pattern of late payments constitutes a breach of the agreement. You have the legal right to issue a formal warning. What does a formal warning do? I asked. It puts them on notice that any future violations could result in acceleration of the loan, meaning the entire balance becomes due immediately. It's a serious step, Christy. It tells them you're not going to let this slide anymore. I thought about Emma, about her tired voice on the phone, about how she said she had been fighting with Brad for days. I thought about the way Brad had changed over the past year, becoming colder, more controlling. This was not just about Thanksgiving. This was about power, about Brad trying to erase me from Emma's life so he could have complete control. Send the letter, I said. Michael drafted it that morning. The letter was professional, legalistic, cold. It stated that the mortgage payment due November 1st had been received late on November 10th, in violation of the agreement terms. It noted that this was the 3rd late payment in 6 months. It warned that any future late payments or defaults would result in acceleration of the full mortgage balance, currently $227,000. Michael sent it via certified mail and email on Tuesday afternoon. I went home and tried to distract myself. I graded papers from my 3rd grade class, made myself dinner, watched television without really seeing it. I kept checking my phone, wondering if Emma would call, if Brad would explode, if I had just made everything worse. Wednesday arrived. Thanksgiving was tomorrow. I woke up and realized I had no plans, no family to celebrate with. I went to the grocery store and bought a small frozen turkey dinner, the kind that comes in a plastic tray and goes in the microwave. The checkout clerk, a young woman with a friendly smile, asked if I was doing anything special for the holiday. Just a quiet day at home, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Thursday morning, Thanksgiving Day. I woke to silence. I heated up my turkey dinner at noon and ate it alone at my small kitchen table. I looked at old photo albums, pictures of Emma as a baby, as a toddler, through all her school years, pictures of Tom before he died, the 3 of us on family vacations, at Christmas, at birthday parties. I cried thinking about all those Thanksgivings we had shared, and now I was sitting here alone because my son-in-law had decided I was not welcome. But beneath the sadness, I felt something else. Resolve. I had done the right thing by sending that letter. Brad needed to understand that his behavior had consequences. Friday morning, the day after Thanksgiving, my phone rang. I did not recognize the number, but I answered anyway. Is this Christy? A woman's voice asked. The tone was sharp, cold, educated. Yes, who's calling? This is Patricia, Brad's mother. I think it's time we had a conversation. My stomach dropped. I had met Patricia exactly twice. Once at Emma and Brad's wedding, and once at a Christmas gathering 2 years ago. She had been polite but distant both times, making it clear she thought her son had married below his station. "Patricia," I said carefully, "what can I do for you?" "You can stop trying to destroy my son's marriage," she snapped. "I heard about your little stunt with the mortgage letter. Do you really think threatening them is going to work?" I felt heat rise in my face. "How do you know about that letter?" "Brad told me everything. He said you've been holding that mortgage over their heads for years, controlling every decision they make. And now you're trying to take their house away because they wanted one Thanksgiving to themselves." "That is not what happened," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Brad has been paying the mortgage late repeatedly. The letter was a formal notice of that breach. And he didn't ask for one Thanksgiving to themselves. He banned me from the holiday and gave Emma an ultimatum." Patricia laughed, a harsh sound. "You clearly don't understand how family works in our world, Christy. When you lend money to family, you're supposed to forgive it eventually, write it off. Instead, you're acting like a loan shark, demanding your pound of flesh." "I have never demanded anything," I said, anger creeping into my voice now. "I gave them an incredibly generous loan at far below market rates. I have never interfered in their lives." "Well, that's not what Brad tells me," Patricia said coldly. "And I believe my son, which is why I'm writing them a check for the full mortgage amount. They'll pay you off by the end of next week. You'll have no power over them anymore, Christy. And believe me, you'll never see your daughter again after this." She hung up before I could respond. I sat there holding the phone, my hands shaking. Patricia was going to pay off the mortgage. That meant I would lose any leverage I had. More importantly, it meant Brad had been lying to his mother about me, painting me as some villain who was trying to control them. I felt panic rising. If they paid off the mortgage, what would stop Brad from cutting Emma off from me completely? What would stop him from continuing whatever controlling behavior he was engaging in? I called Michael immediately. "Christy, slow down," he said after I explained what Patricia had told me. "If they pay off the mortgage early, can you refuse the payment?" "No," Michael said. "If they tender the full amount owed, the mortgage is satisfied. You have to accept it. So, I have no options." "Well," Michael said slowly, "there is one thing. Do you remember the clause we put in the mortgage agreement about the house title?" I tried to think back. "The house is in Emma's name only." "Right. And do you remember why we did that?" "Because I wanted to protect Emma. If anything happened to the marriage, I wanted her to keep the house." "Exactly. And we put in a clause that states, as the mortgage holder, you have to give written consent for any sale or transfer of the property. That clause remains in effect as long as the mortgage exists. Once they pay it off, that protection disappears." My mind was racing. So right now, Brad can't sell the house or refinance without my permission. "That's correct. The house is in Emma's name, and you hold the mortgage with that consent clause. It was designed to protect Emma." "Michael," I said slowly, "I think Emma might need that protection." "What do you mean?" I told him about Emma's voice on the phone, how tired and defeated she sounded. I told him about the late payments, Brad's behavior, the isolation from friends and family. As I spoke, a picture formed in my mind of something darker than just a family disagreement. "Christy," Michael said seriously, "if you think Emma is in a controlling or abusive situation, that changes things. But you need to talk to her directly. You need to find out what's really going on." He was right. I needed to see my daughter. Saturday morning, I decided I needed more information before Patricia wrote that check, and I lost all leverage. I needed to understand what was really happening in Emma's marriage. I called Laura, Emma's best friend from college. They had gone through nursing school together and now worked at the same hospital. Laura had been Emma's maid of honor at the wedding, and I knew they were still close. "Christy, hi," Laura said when she answered. She sounded cautious, like she was not sure if she should be talking to me. "Laura, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. How is Emma doing?" There was a long pause. Why are you asking? Because I'm worried about her. Something's not right. And I think you know it too. Another pause. Then Laura sighed. Christy, I've been worried about Emma for months. She's lost weight. She seems anxious all the time. Last month, she broke down crying in the break room during our shift. My heart clenched. Did she tell you what was wrong? She wouldn't talk about it. But Christy, I think Brad is controlling the money. Emma mentioned a few weeks ago that she had to ask Brad for permission to buy new scrubs. Her old ones were falling apart, and she needed new ones for work. But she said Brad controls their bank account, and she has to ask him before spending anything. I felt sick. That's not normal. No, it's not. Laura agreed. I've tried to talk to her about it, but she shuts down. She says, everything is fine, but I can see it's not. She's not the same person she was a year ago. After I hung up with Laura, I knew I had to reach out to Emma directly. I sent her a text message. Sweetheart, can we meet for coffee? Just the two of us. Please. I miss you. Hours passed with no response. I tried to distract myself by cleaning my condo, but I kept checking my phone every few minutes. Finally, late that night, around 11 o'clock, I got a text back from Emma. I can't, Mom. Brad checks my phone. I'm sorry. I stared at that message, reading it, over and over. Brad checks her phone. My daughter, a 30-year-old professional nurse, had to worry about her husband checking her phone. I texted back immediately. Emma, are you safe? Are you okay? The response came quickly. I have to go. Please stop texting me. I could not sleep that night. I lay in bed thinking about Emma, about the warning signs I had ignored, Brad's increasing control over their finances, his isolation of Emma from me and her friends, the way Emma's personality had changed, becoming smaller, quieter, more anxious. This was not just about a mortgage or a Thanksgiving dinner. This was about abuse. Sunday morning, I was making coffee when I heard a knock at my door. It was barely 8 o'clock. I looked through the peephole and almost dropped my coffee mug. Emma was standing there, looking exhausted and pale, her eyes red from crying. I pulled the door open and Emma fell into my arms, sobbing. I held her, led her inside, sat her down on my couch. I did not ask questions. I just held my daughter while she cried. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Emma pulled back and looked at me. Mom, I don't know what to do. Tell me what's going on. Sweetheart, tell me everything. And she did. The words came tumbling out, like she had been holding them back for so long and could not contain them anymore. Brad had been secretly gambling online for the past year. He had lost $43,000 of their savings. When Emma found out 6 months ago, Brad promised he would stop, that he would get help. But he did not stop. He took out a personal loan of $20,000 at 18% interest, without telling Emma, using it to cover his gambling losses and keep playing. He had been using Emma's nursing paychecks to cover the loan payments and his continued gambling. That was why the mortgage payments had been late. Brad had been draining their bank accounts, and there was not enough money left to pay their bills on time. The promotion Brad supposedly got at his financial consulting firm was actually a lateral move. His boss had almost fired him because Brad's work performance had declined so badly. He had been gambling during work hours, missing deadlines, losing clients. Brad's parents did not know about the gambling. Brad had told them everything was fine, that he was doing great at work. He blamed all their financial problems on the mortgage payments to me, saying they were too high and squeezing their budget. The payments were not too high. They were incredibly reasonable. But Brad needed someone to blame, and I was the convenient target. When Christy sent the warning letter about late payments, Brad panicked. He was afraid I would find out about the gambling and tell his parents. So he decided to cut me out completely, starting with Thanksgiving. He gave Emma the ultimatum: choose him or choose me. Emma looked at me with hollow eyes. Mom, I don't know who he is anymore. He used to be so different, Now he's angry all the time. He controls everything. I feel like I'm trapped. Has he hurt you physically? I asked, my voice shaking. Emma shook her head. No, but he scares me sometimes. He punches walls. He threw a plate across the kitchen last week. He breaks things when he's angry. Emma, you need to leave him. I can't, she whispered. I have nowhere to go. He controls all the money, and the house is in my name, but I can't afford the mortgage without his income. If I leave, I lose everything. I took her hands in mine. Listen to me. You're not going to lose anything. I'm going to help you. But you have to trust me. And you have to be brave. What do? We fight back, I said. And we use every tool we have. Emma and I sat at my small kitchen table, and I laid out the plan. My mind was working clearly now, all the pieces falling into place. The house is in your name, I started. I hold the mortgage. Brad has been violating the terms of that mortgage by making late payments. According to the agreement Michael drew up, I can call the loan due immediately if there's a pattern of default. Emma looked confused. What does that mean? It means I can demand that the full mortgage balance, all $227,000, be paid within 30 days. If Brad can't pay it, and he can't because he's gambled away your savings, the house goes into foreclosure. But Mom, then I lose the house too. I smiled gently. No, sweetheart, because the house is in your name, and I'm your mother. I'm not going to foreclose on you. I'm going to foreclose on Brad. I explained the full strategy. I would issue a formal notice of default and acceleration, demanding full payment. Brad would panic and probably try to get the money from his mother, Patricia. But Patricia's check would take time to process. While that was happening, Emma would file for legal separation. With a legal separation, I explained, you can request exclusive use of the marital home. Since the house is titled only in your name, you have a strong legal claim to it. He'll agree to restructure the mortgage with you alone, cutting Brad out entirely. He'll be left with his gambling debts, his personal loan, and no house. Emma was scared. Brad will fight this. He'll be so angry. Let him be angry, I said firmly. You've been protecting him, covering for him, sacrificing for him. It's time to protect yourself. What about his parents? What if Patricia gets involved? Let her. She doesn't know the truth about his gambling. If she finds out, she'll be furious with Brad, not you. I called Michael Patterson right then, with Emma sitting beside me. Michael listened to everything Emma told him about Brad's gambling, the financial abuse, the controlling behavior. His voice was grave when he spoke. Emma, I'm going to connect you with a colleague of mine. Her name is Susan Hartley. She's a family law attorney who specializes in cases involving financial abuse. You need to meet with her as soon as possible. I scheduled an appointment for Emma with Susan for Monday morning. Then Michael said he would draft the notice of default and acceleration immediately and have it ready to send out by Monday afternoon. Emma stayed at my condo for the rest of the weekend. She told Brad she was visiting me because I was sick. A lie, but a necessary one. Brad texted her constantly. I watched Emma's phone light up with message after message. When are you coming home? Stop running to your mother every time we have a problem. You're being manipulated. Your mother is trying to destroy our marriage. Emma did not respond to most of them. I helped her gather her thoughts, practice what she would say to the attorney. We went through her finances, trying to figure out how much damage Brad had done. It was worse than Emma had realized. Their joint savings account, which had once held $62,000, now had less than $3,000. Brad had maxed out 2 credit cards in Emma's name without her knowledge, adding another $18,000 of debt. How did I not see this? Emma kept asking. How did I let this happen? This is not your fault. I told her over and over. He hid it from you. He manipulated you. That's what abusers do. Sunday evening, Emma's phone rang. It was Brad, and he sounded different. His voice was calm, almost cheerful. Emma put him on speaker so I could hear. Emma, I have great news, Brad said. My mother is wiring us the money to pay off your mother's mortgage. Well, be free by the end of the week. We can finally move forward with our lives without Christy interfering. Emma, coached by me, took a breath and said carefully, Brad, we need to talk about the money you've been spending. There was a long silence on the other end. What are you talking about? Brad's voice had gone flat. I know about the gambling. I know about the personal loan. I know you've been lying to me. Another silence. Longer this time. Then Brad exploded. His voice came through the phone like a weapon. Your mother put you up to this, didn't she? She's been poisoning you against me. I knew this would happen. She can't stand that you have a life without her. She's a controlling, manipulative woman who's trying to destroy our marriage. This isn't about my mother, Emma said, her voice shaking but steady. This is about you lying to me and controlling me. If you don't come home right now, Brad said, his voice low and threatening, don't bother coming home at all. I'm done with this. I'm done with you choosing her over me. He hung up. Emma looked at me, trembling. I just burned that bridge. No, I said, putting my arm around her. You just took the first step toward freedom. An hour later, Emma received a text from Brad. It was short and brutal. I've changed the locks. Your things are in the garage. You made your choice. I felt fury rise in me like a wave. Brad had just locked Emma out of her own house, the house that was titled in her name. I called Michael immediately. Michael, Brad just locked Emma out of the house that's in her name. Can we use this? Absolutely, Michael said. And I could hear the anger in his voice too. That's illegal. Emma has every right to be in that house. We can file for an emergency order tomorrow morning. Emma, despite her fear, looked at me with something new in her eyes. Determination. Mom, she said. I'm done protecting him. Let's do this. Monday morning arrived cold and gray, the kind of November day that feels like winter is pressing at the windows. Emma and I drove to Susan Hartley's office in downtown. The law firm occupied the 10th floor of a modern glass building, and Susan herself was a woman in her mid-40s with short dark hair and intelligent eyes that seemed to see right through any pretense. She listened to Emma's story without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When Emma finished, Susan set down her pen and looked at her seriously. Emma, what you're describing is financial abuse and coercion. Brad has systematically isolated you, controlled your access to money, hidden debts in your name, and now he's locked you out of your own home. We're going to fix this, but you need to be prepared for this to get difficult. I'm ready, Emma said. And I squeezed her hand. Susan filed for an emergency restraining order that afternoon. Citing Brad's illegal lockout, she also filed for legal separation on grounds of financial abuse and emotional cruelty, requesting exclusive occupancy of the marital home for Emma. The hearing was scheduled for Wednesday morning, 2 days away. Simultaneously, Michael Patterson sent the formal notice of default and acceleration to Brad via certified mail and email. The letter was coldly professional, stating that due to repeated late payments and breach of contract terms, the full mortgage balance of $227,000 was now due within 30 days. Michael included documentation of every late payment, every violation of the agreement. It was legally airtight. Brad received both the family court filing and the mortgage acceleration notice on Monday afternoon. According to Emma, who could still see some of the activity on their shared phone plan, Brad started calling her number over and over. She had blocked him, so the calls went straight to voicemail. He left 17 messages. I listened to one of them, and it was chilling to hear Brad's voice cycle through emotions like a man's spinning through different masks. One message was rage. You and your mother are going to regret this. I'll make sure you both pay. The next was false sweetness. Emma, baby, please, let's talk about this like adults. We can work this out. Then desperation. I love you. I need you. Please come home. Emma deleted all of them. Tuesday morning, my phone rang. It was Patricia, Brad's mother. I braced myself for another hostile conversation. "Christy," Patricia said, and her voice was sharp as broken glass. "You're destroying my son's marriage. Emma was perfectly happy until you interfered." "Patricia," I said calmly, "do you know your son has a gambling problem?" There was absolute silence on the other end. "Do you know he's lost over $43,000 in the past year? Do you know he took out a personal loan without telling Emma, maxed out credit cards in her name, and has been using her paychecks to cover his gambling debts?" More silence. "Do you know he locked Emma out of her own house? Do you know has been financially abusing her?" "That's not true," Patricia said, but her voice had lost its edge. "Brad would never do that." "Ask him," I said. "Ask him about the online gambling accounts. Ask him about the personal loan. Ask him why there's a court hearing scheduled for Wednesday morning." Patricia hung up without another word. I thought that was the end of it, but Tuesday evening, my phone rang again. "Unknown number," I answered. And it was Patricia again. But this time, she sounded completely different. Her voice was small, shaken, defeated. "Christy," she said quietly, "I confronted Brad this afternoon. I drove to his office and made him show me his bank statements, his credit card bills, everything. I waited. He admitted it." Patricia continued, and I could hear she was crying. "He broke down. He told me about the gambling, the debts, all of it. Has been lying to us for over a year. His father and I had no idea. We thought he was doing so well." "Patricia, I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. "I owe you an apology," Patricia said, her voice breaking. "I was wrong about you. I thought you were controlling Emma, but you were protecting her. I should have seen what was happening to my son." There was a pause, and then Patricia said something I never expected. "I'm not going to give Brad the money to pay off the mortgage. He needs to face the consequences of his actions. He needs help. Real help. Not another bailout from his parents. We've been enabling him his whole life, always rescuing him from his mistakes. That ends now." I felt a rush of relief. "Thank you for telling me." "I called Emma this evening," Patricia said. "I told her I support her decision to separate from Brad. I told her I'm sorry for not being a better mother-in-law, for not seeing what was happening. She deserves so much better than what my son has become." After we hung up, I sat in silence for a long moment. Patricia could have been an enemy, could have fought us every step of the way. Instead, when confronted with the truth, she had chosen to do the right thing. Wednesday morning was the court hearing. Emma and I drove to the courthouse together. Susan Hartley met us in the lobby, professional and prepared with a thick folder of documents. Brad arrived with a cheaper attorney, a young man who looked fresh out of law school and overwhelmed. Brad himself looked terrible. He had not shaved, his suit was wrinkled, and his eyes were bloodshot. He glared at me with such hatred that I instinctively moved closer to Emma. The judge was a woman in her mid-60s with gray hair pulled back in a bun and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her nameplate read, Judge Margaret Brennan. She listened to Susan's presentation first. Susan laid out the evidence methodically. The gambling debts, the secret loans, the credit cards opened in Emma's name, the threatening voicemails, and the illegal lockout. She presented bank statements, credit reports, text messages, everything. Emma sat beside me, hands folded in her lap, her face pale but composed. Brad's attorney tried to argue that Emma had abandoned the home willingly, that she had left of her own accord to stay with her mother. Susan countered immediately. "Your Honor, Emma owns this home. The house is titled solely in her name. She left for a weekend to visit her mother. When she attempted to return, my client found that Mr. Brad Thompson had illegally changed the locks and denied her access to her own property. That's not abandonment. That's an illegal eviction." Judge Brennan looked at Brad over the top of her reading glasses. "Mr. Thompson, is it true you changed the locks on a home that is titled in your wife's name?" Brad's attorney whispered something to him. Brad stood up slowly. "Yes, Your Honor. But I was angry. She was turning her mother against me. That's not a legal justification for locking someone out of their own property, Judge Brennan said dryly. She reviewed the documents for several minutes, then looked up. I'm granting the petitioner's request for exclusive occupancy of the marital home. Mrs. Emma Thompson is awarded full access to the property immediately. Mr. Brad Thompson, you have 24 hours to vacate the premises and remove your personal belongings. I am also granting a temporary restraining order. Mr. Thompson, you are not to contact Mrs. Thompson, except through your attorneys. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, Brad said, his voice hollow. As we left the courthouse, Emma burst into tears, but they were tears of relief. She hugged me tightly. We did it, Mom. We actually did it. You did it, sweetheart, I said. You stood up for yourself. But Emma's relief was tempered with worry. Later that evening, back at my condo, she said, Mom, I still can't afford the mortgage on my own. My nursing salary isn't enough, especially with the debts Brad left me with. What am I going to do? I smiled. I've been thinking about that. We're going to restructure the mortgage. It'll lower your monthly payment to $600, half of what you were paying before, and I'm making it interest-free for the first 2 years while you get back on your feet. If you need to sell the house eventually, we can do that. But Emma, you're going to be okay. I promise. Emma cried again, but this time it was gratitude. The next 2 weeks passed in a strange blur of activity and emotion. Brad moved out of the house, taking only his clothes and personal items. Emma changed the locks again, this time to locks that only she had keys for. I helped her clean the house, room by room, reclaiming the space as hers. We found evidence of Brad's gambling everywhere, betting slips stuffed in drawers, printouts of online gambling accounts hidden in the garage, credit card statements showing charges to casino websites. Emma gathered it all and gave it to Susan Hartley for the divorce proceedings. Yes, divorce. After the court hearing, Emma made the decision to file for full divorce, not just legal separation. She said she had spent the past year walking on eggshells, trying to make Brad happy, trying to save a marriage that was already destroyed. She was done trying. Emma started seeing a therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Sarah Chen, who specialized in helping people recover from abusive relationships. In their sessions, Emma began to understand how Brad had slowly, systematically isolated her from her friends and family, how he had made her doubt her own judgment, how he had used money as a tool of control. She reconnected with Laura and her other nursing friends. They came over for dinner, helped her paint the living room a warm cream color that Emma had always wanted, but Brad had vetoed. They planted bulbs in the front garden that would bloom in the spring, a symbol of new beginnings. Christy came over twice a week for dinner. We talked about everything. The marriage, the mistakes Emma felt she had made, the warning signs she wished she had seen earlier. I shared my own regrets with her. I should have said something earlier, I told her one evening as we washed dishes together. I saw the red flags. I saw how Brad was changing, how he was treating you. But I didn't want to interfere. I thought I should let you figure it out on your own. Emma dried a plate and looked at me. Mom, you did exactly what I needed. You gave me space to make my own choices, but when I needed help, you were there. You protected me when I couldn't protect myself. Financially, Emma was slowly rebuilding. Michael Patterson helped her restructure the mortgage as promised. $600 per month. No interest for 2 years. It was manageable on her nursing salary. Susan Hartley worked with the credit card companies to separate Emma's legitimate debts from the charges Brad had made without her knowledge. It would take time, but Emma would recover. Brad, meanwhile, was struggling. He had moved in with a friend from work, a cramped apartment in a less desirable part of town. Patricia and Richard, his parents, had insisted he enter a gambling addiction program. He attended meetings 3 times a week and started seeing a counselor. He lost his job at the financial consulting firm when his gambling problem became known to his employers. He filed for bankruptcy in early December. Through her attorney, Brad sent Emma a letter. It was 3 pages long, handwritten, full of apologies and regret. He took responsibility for the gambling, for the lies, for the abuse. He did not ask for reconciliation. He did not ask for forgiveness. He simply said he was sorry and that he hoped someday Emma could find peace. Emma read the letter while sitting at my kitchen table. She cried, but they were complicated tears. Sadness for the man Brad had been when they first met. Anger at what he had become. Relief that she was free from it. "I don't know if I can ever forgive him," Emma said. "But I'm trying not to hate him either. Hate takes too much energy, and I'm tired of giving him my energy." 3 weeks after the court hearing, Emma received another letter from Brad's attorney. This one was different. Emma brought it to Susan Hartley immediately, and Susan called me to come to her office. "Christy, you need to hear this," Susan said when I arrived. She handed me the letter. I read it carefully. Brad was agreeing to the divorce. He was not contesting anything. He was not asking for any share of the house, any alimony, any division of assets. He was releasing any claim he had to the marital home, giving it to Emma outright. "Why would he do this?" Emma asked, bewildered. Susan looked at us seriously. "According to the letter, Brad has accepted full responsibility for what happened. He acknowledges the harm he caused. He says he wants Emma to have the security of the house as a form of restitution." I thought about it. "People can surprise you," I said slowly. Maybe hitting rock bottom was what Brad needed to see clearly. That doesn't mean Emma has to forgive him or take him back. But maybe it means his finally being honest with himself. Emma agreed to the divorce terms. The house became officially and entirely hers. No strings attached. The legal process moved quickly after that. By mid-December, the divorce was finalized. One evening in late December, Emma and I were sitting in her kitchen drinking tea. Snow was falling softly outside, covering the yard in white. Emma looked healthier than she had in months. She had gained back some of the weight she had lost. The constant anxiety was gone from her eyes. "Mom," Emma said suddenly, "I've been thinking about something." "What's that, sweetheart?" "If you hadn't held that mortgage, if you hadn't had that legal leverage, I don't know if I ever would have gotten out. Brad would have kept controlling me, and I would have been too scared to leave because I had no safety net. That mortgage wasn't about control. It was about protection. You gave me a foundation to stand on when I needed it most." I reached across the table and took her hand. "I didn't plan it that way, but I'm glad it worked out. You saved me," Emma said, her eyes filling with tears. "Not just from Brad, but from myself. You taught me that I'm worth fighting for." Later that night, as I drove home through the snow, I thought about Tom, my late husband. I wondered what he would think of everything that had happened. I imagined he would be proud. Proud of how Emma had found her strength. Proud of how I had protected our daughter. The mortgage, the thing that Brad had claimed was about control, had ended up being the tool that set Emma free. Christmas Eve arrived with clear skies and bitter cold, the kind of night where the stars seemed to shine brighter than usual. I drove to Emma's house with a trunk full of presents and a pie I had baked that morning. The house was lit up with white lights along the gutters, and I could see a Christmas tree through the front window. Emma opened the door before I could knock, pulling me into a warm hug. "Merry Christmas, Mom." The house smelled like roasting turkey and cinnamon. Emma had invited a small group for dinner. Me, Laura, and 2 other nursing friends. And surprisingly, Patricia. Yes, Patricia. Brad's mother had called Emma 2 weeks ago and asked if they could meet for coffee. Emma was hesitant at first, but she agreed. Patricia apologized again for not seeing what Brad had become, for not being more supportive during the marriage. She told Emma that she and Richard were getting Brad the help he needed, but they had also set firm boundaries. No more bailouts, no more excuses. Patricia and I had talked on the phone several times since then. She was different from the cold, judgmental woman I had met at Emma's wedding. She was humbler, more aware of her own mistakes as a mother. We would never be close friends, but we had developed a mutual respect. Patricia arrived at 6 o'clock with homemade cookies and a small gift for Emma. She hugged me when she came in, something I never would have expected 2 months ago. "Christy," she said quietly, "thank you for protecting my daughter-in-law when I didn't." We gathered around Emma's dining room table, a table that was now truly hers. The food was simple but delicious. Turkey, mashed potatoes, green beans, cranberry sauce, and my pie for dessert. As we ate, I looked around at the faces, all women who had supported Emma through the worst time of her life. After dinner, as we were clearing plates, Emma raised her wine glass. "I want to say something," she said, and everyone grew quiet. "This year has been the hardest of my life, but it taught me what really matters: honesty, courage, and the people who truly love you." She looked at me, and her eyes were bright with emotion. "Mom, thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for being strong when I couldn't be. Thank you for showing me that love isn't about control. It's about protection and support, about giving people the tools they need to stand on their own." Everyone raised their glasses, and I felt tears running down my face. Later, Patricia shared an update on Brad. He was 6 weeks sober from gambling, working at a retail store in a mall, living simply. He attended therapy twice a week and his gambling addiction meetings religiously. He had sent Christmas cards to his parents with a note that said he was taking responsibility for his life. Finally, he asked about Emma, Patricia said carefully. He wanted to know if she was doing okay. I told him she was thriving. He said that made him happy, that she deserved happiness. Emma listened to this and nodded slowly. "I don't hate him," she said. "I'm sad about what happened, but I don't hate him. I hope he finds peace." After everyone left, and it was just Emma and me cleaning up in the kitchen, Emma asked me something. "Mom, do you think you'll ever trust someone again, after everything with Brad, after seeing how wrong things can go?" I thought about it while drying a wine glass. I've learned that trust isn't about blind faith. It's about boundaries. I trusted Brad at first, but I should have maintained boundaries from the beginning. The mortgage, even though I didn't realize it at the time, was a boundary. It protected you and gave you options when you needed them most. Emma nodded, absorbing this. I continued, "I've also learned that real love sometimes means being willing to be the bad guy. I wasn't trying to control you or Brad. I was trying to make sure you had a foundation, a safety net, and when I saw you were in danger, I used every tool I had to protect you." "You saved my life," Emma said simply. "No, sweetheart. You saved your own life. I just gave you the tools to do it." Emma had made a decision about the house recently. She was going to keep it. At first, she thought about selling it, starting completely fresh. But then she realized something important. "This house is mine," she had told me a few days ago. "I fought for it. I earned it. It's where I'm going to rebuild my life, and I'm not going to let Brad's memory drive me out of my own home." She had been making it her own, room by room. New paint colors, new furniture. She planted a garden in the backyard that would bloom in the spring. She was talking about going back to school in the fall, working toward becoming a nurse practitioner. She had goals again, dreams again. As we stood on her front porch that Christmas Eve, watching the stars, Emma said something that made my heart swell. "Next Thanksgiving, you're coming here. And every Thanksgiving after that, no one is ever going to keep us apart again." I hugged her tightly. "He'll be here, sweetheart. Always." As I drove home that night, the streets quiet and covered in snow, I thought about everything that had happened. The text message from Brad that had started this whole crisis. The mortgage that had seemed like a weapon but turned out to be a shield. The way a family can fracture and then rebuild itself, stronger than before. I thought about the question Emma had asked me. Would I trust again? And I realized the answer was yes, but differently. I would trust with wisdom, with boundaries, with the understanding that love and protection are not the same as control. I learned that family is not about keeping the peace at any cost. It is about protecting each other, even when it is hard, even when people judge you, even when you have to make yourself unpopular. I learned that generosity without boundaries is not love. It is enabling, and I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is hold someone accountable, let them face consequences, and help them stand up when they are ready to fight for themselves. That Thanksgiving, when I was banned from the table, I thought I had lost my daughter. But really, that was the moment I got her back, because I stopped trying to keep everyone happy and started protecting what mattered most: Emma's dignity, safety, and future. And in the end, that is what family is supposed to do. The mortgage, the thing Brad tried to use as a wedge between us, became the bridge that brought us back together. It was never about the money. It was about having something solid to stand on when everything else was falling apart. It was about giving Emma the power to choose her own path, even when that path was difficult. Now, as I think about the future, I feel hopeful. Emma is healing. She is strong. She is free. And our relationship, tested by fire, is stronger than it has ever been. Sometimes, the greatest gifts we give our children are not the easy things, not the comfortable things, but the tools they need to save themselves. And sometimes, the most powerful thing a mother can do is simply refuse to let go. Before I end this story, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between keeping the peace and protecting someone you love? Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members, even when it was painful? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, if it touched your heart or made you think about your own family relationships, please consider giving it a like. It helps others who might need to hear this message find it too. And if you are not already subscribed to this channel, I would be honored if you would subscribe. There are more stories like this one. Stories about real people facing real challenges and finding the courage to fight for what matters. Please share this story with someone who might need to hear it. Maybe it is someone who is struggling in a difficult relationship, someone who needs to know that it is okay to set boundaries, someone who needs permission to protect themselves. Your share might be exactly what someone needs today. Thank you so much for listening to my story. Thank you for taking this journey with me through one of the hardest and most important times of my life. I hope it gave you something to think about, something to hold on to, something that helps you face your own challenges with courage. May you always have the strength to protect the people you love, the wisdom to know when boundaries are necessary, and the courage to stand up for what is right, even when it is hard. Merry Christmas, and may your holidays be filled with love, healing, and the comfort of family who truly supports you.